Welcome, everyone. Today's topic is bringing the brightest light to shadow inventory. So let's talk about shadow inventory, why it's called shadow inventory, and how you can benefit from it. Okay, so for that, we're going to go over the foreclosure process so that you have a very good idea of what shadow inventory is, or in other words, REO, so bank-owned properties. So this is a process in Illinois. It's a judicial state foreclosure. In here, we're going to be focusing on the second half of this diagram. When somebody defaults in the payment, they're going to enter the foreclosure process. Okay. Um, After 30 to 90 days that they have not made any payment, then the bank is going to file a lawsuit against them. And the bank needs to go through the court system because Illinois is a judicial state. So that means that the banks have to go through the court system. And then eventually, after 9 to 12 months, the judge is going to issue the notice of trustee sale, which, in other words, is the auction date. Okay. And then at that point, the auction date it has many different names. It could be sheriff sale, judicial sale, trustee sale, but in other words, it's an auction held at the courthouse in the county where the property belongs to. Okay, so at that place is where a lot of investors show up and they start bidding against each other. The problem there is that oftentimes you buy sight unseen. You have to pay cash within 24 hours, so it is extremely risky. That is why we do not recommend our investors to go to auctions. Okay. So now the question is, what happens at the auction if the property doesn't sell? Okay. For whatever reason, then that property is going to become REO, so the bank's asset. So that property will belong now to the bank. Now, keep in mind, banks are not in the business of real estate. They are in the business of lending. So the banks, we're going to be focusing on this side of the screen. So the banks are going to do two things. They're going to hire an REO broker, which in turn is going to put it in the MLS. And also, they are going to send it to the auctioning platforms, such as Hubzu.com, Auction.com, just to mention a couple of the major ones. Okay, so at that point, what the bank needs to do is sell the property, okay, because they don't want to have any real estate inventory. They want their money back. Okay, so the question is, how can you benefit from this? So this is the key. Once the property becomes REO, then you have the ability to reach out to the bank directly and try to buy it from them. But this is the secret. If you're going to be reaching out to the banks, you have to reach out to small community banks. Okay, that's secret number 3 on the slide. Why is that? Because if the property is owned by Chase, Bank of America, some of the major banks, they will not sell you 1 or 2 properties. Why? Because they have a foreclosure department. They want to move or sell the properties bulk. Okay, so they will not even talk to you. You will not be able to get a hold of the asset manager at the bank, unlike if you go to small community banks. So you can actually make an offer directly to the bank. Now, the benefit of reaching out directly to the bank is because oftentimes they can also finance the transaction. Okay, so it's like a win-win. We've done that once with actually TCF Bank. It was a foreclosure property. We reached out to them, and in fact, they also did the financing for us up to 95%. So that was just a great deal. So I'm going to show you where you find inventory and how you can benefit from it. But I also want to show you that we have built an incredible relationship with a partner from Texas, And that partner provides us with hundreds of properties on a weekly basis. All the properties that are going to the auctioning platforms, we have access to those. Now, why is that so critical? That is extremely critical because not only do we know the properties that are going to the auctioning platforms, but we also know what the bank's reserve is, and that is huge. Now, what is bank's reserve? Bank's reserve is how much the bank will sell the property for. Yes, every property has a reserve price, meaning that the bank will not sell it below that bank's reserve. Okay, so that is very important to understand. So when you go to these websites like Hubzu, auction.com, and so forth, most of the times you will not know what the reserve is. Some of them, they'll show you what the reserve is. So people need to bid up until the reserve is met. Once the reserve is met, then the property is going to go to the highest bidder. Okay. But what if, imagine, what if you knew the bank's reserve for every single property? Imagine. And most importantly, what if you could buy it directly from the bank, even if it's a large bank, without any competition, without having to bid against other investors. Imagine. So I'm going to show you how you're going to be able to do that. Okay. So let's take it to the next slide. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the shadow inventory. So shadow inventory, or REO, it's technically off market, so not for sale. So that is why you have to reach out to the bank. So I'm logging into ChicagoDealVault. I'm going to off market properties. And here we follow pretty much the foreclosure process. So it's the pre-foreclosures, the properties that are going to go to the judicial auction 30 to 45 days in advance. You're going to know about that. And here is a shadow inventory. So once the properties became the bank's asset, guess what? You are going to get notified about that. So what we can do is, let's say I can filter by DuPage and then search 473. So I just want to give you an example. I'm going to randomly click on one of the properties right here. Okay, so this is what you need to understand. It's right here. Sold to the plaintiff. So the plaintiff is the bank, because plaintiff is the one who started the lawsuit against the owner. So plaintiff refers to the bank. So it says it went back to the bank for $110,000. Okay, and that happened on March 10th, 2020. Okay, so now what's very important is to check who the plaintiff or bank is. So here you have to find out Nation Star Mortgage, whether this is a small or a large bank. Nation Star Mortgage, it's a huge bank. So even if we give you the phone number of the bank's attorney, if you try to reach out to them, it's going to be practically impossible to make them an offer. Why? Because this is a large bank. Okay, so let me pull up another one. Okay, this is in Woodridge. Now I'm gonna go straight to the plaintiff Ditech. Again, this is a huge bank. So it's telling you how much the property took, the bank took it for, 225. Okay. Um, so let me show you another one. Hopefully we can find a small community bank. Okay, so this is okay. So this is an example of a small community bank. Okay, Wilmington Savings Fund Society. Okay, this is nowhere in the list of large banks. So this is an example of a bank that you can reach out to, so long the property makes sense. Okay, so now how do we know whether this property makes sense? Very simple. So the property went back to the bank. So the starting bid must have been around 293, but this is the ARV on the property, 330 to 371. Okay, so what this tells me is that the starting bid on this property was somewhere in the upper 200s. Now, if you look at the max allowed offer, depending on your exit strategy, the bank's initial bid started too high. That is why most likely nobody bought this property. So if we were to go to the judicial auction at the courthouse, we know the most we should pay for this property, 216, 251, almost 200. But the bank's starting bid was somewhere in the upper 200s. So obviously this didn't make any sense, right? Therefore, this became the bank's asset at this point because they couldn't sell it at the auction. Now, you may wonder, why did they start with such a high starting bid in the first place? Well, the answer is right here. Balance due. The balance due is 447,000. Okay, so as you can see, the bank is losing a lot of money, at least 150,000. Okay, that's going to be a write-off for the bank. So that is why the starting bid was kind of high. And therefore, nobody bought the property. Therefore, it became the bank's asset. Okay, so this is a cool thing. This is what I love about the system, that you don't have to think, create, work. All the numbers are in front of you, just in such a simple way that it will show you whether it makes sense to buy. So at this point, even if the bank uh, has a huge loss because the owner owed 447, we can still reach out to the bank, okay? This bank, we can reach out to their attorney directly and say, hey, I understand that your client, and then you mention the name of the bank, took this property back from auction, so it became an REO. I'm interested in making an offer for the property. Would your client be interested in entertaining an offer, right? And then you already know the most you should pay for the property. So it doesn't matter how much underwater this property is, you know your numbers, right? So you cannot go over that. Are there any questions so far? So I want to make sure that you fully understand these. Bank-owned properties. So these are properties that the bank took from the auction because nobody bought them. And the reason why is because either the condition of the property is not great, the location, many physical factors, or because the starting bid was just too high. Okay, so for investors to make sense out of that purchase. But again, if you want to buy properties from the bank, it has to be from small community banks, okay? Please do not try to reach out to like the Chase or Bank of America, Ditech, Nation Star. Those are humongous banks. They have a foreclosure department. They won't sell you one, two, three properties to me, you, no one, okay? They're gonna move those in bulk to the auctioning platforms, okay? So this is how you can easily find that inventory. And then on the filtering criteria, something that you can use that is extremely powerful is to look for high equity. So I'm going to show you the difference now. So I want to find properties that have a lot of equity. So I'll show you. Let me close this off. So now it came down to 24. So what does that mean? What it means is that uh, here, so the outstanding balance was 97. The starting bid on the property was 293. It was quite high. And then the property is worth about 500,000 and up. Okay, so there's a lot of equity in this property. Now the next question is this a large bank or a small bank? Deutsche Bank. So this is a really large bank. So it's going to be practically impossible to buy it directly from Deutsche Bank. But I just want to show you that when you use the high equity filter, these are going to be awesome deals. Why? Because the balance due is very little compared to what the property is worth. And imagine, think about this. This is just so hard to understand that how can somebody lose a $500,000 home just by owing less than 100,000. I mean, does that make sense to you? I mean, you only owe 20% of the value of the property. And since the owner did not come current with the loan, they ended up losing everything, equity, the home, they ruined their credit. So it's a pretty sad story and it happens often. That is why ideally we intercept these properties at the pre-foreclosure stage or the upcoming auctions before the bank takes over the property, okay? Because then we can negotiate directly with the owner. So when you negotiate directly with the owner, there are way too many benefits. Let me tell you, benefit number one, you have zero competition. You're not bidding against other investors. You are one-on-one with the owner. Benefit number two, you can finance the deal. You can use an asset-based lender. Benefit number three, you can get to see the property from the inside, which is just amazing, right? You have, it could be a win-win for the owner, for you, and for the bank, okay? To at all cost prevent foreclosure or for the property to become REO, okay? So now, what I want to show you is something extremely powerful. What if you could buy properties from large banks? What if you could buy them without any competition? What if you could still finance them? Imagine, well, that is possible. So let me show you in here, pretty much, this is gonna be you, and the rest are going to be lining up, right? Bidding against each other. So this is an example of a property. In fact, we should be closing on this property this week, Friday. It's a property in Mount Prospect. So as you can see on the bidding, it's the current bidding, it was a 198. Okay, it's a 3-bedroom, 1-bath in Mount Prospect. Mount Prospect is a great area. It's an A area. So the bidding is 198. This property's ARV after repair value is somewhere around 275 to 285. Okay, so as you can imagine, people are bidding against each other. So the problem with that is that oftentimes they will overpay for the property because they think this property could be worth 280. So they're going to continue to bid, but they don't understand the numbers. So imagine this is what we did. Well, this is the Mount Prospect area. So it's an A area, great schools, great everything. Okay, it's an A area. So let me show you the details on this property. This property went back to the bank, became an REO back in January this year for 159. So to me, I just don't understand why nobody bought this property because DealVault, look at the max allowed offer. 173, 201, 159, right? So it's telling me that at 159, it's an awesome deal. So why was this property not sold at the courthouse? I don't know. And here, the ARV is somewhere in the 275 to 85 range. So this is what happened. So the cool thing is that the bank took over this property, and then the bank sent it to XOM. That's the website that we were just looking at right here for auctioning, right? So they can maximize their profit. So what we did is we went the back door and we were able to pull this property from the auctioning platform, okay? So we were able to get it on the contract for 161,000. You heard me right. It is, we knew the bank's reserve was 161, which happens to be what the bank took it for at the courthouse. Okay, it's not always the same, that number, but in this case, it happens to be. So the reserve happens to be what the bank took it for. Okay, so think about it. Imagine people are overbidding each other. They are 198, and this is a day before the auction ended. So imagine how high the bidding went. It did not matter how high the bidding went. We were able to get this property on the contract for 161,000. So obviously, based on DealVault, it says the most you should pay, even if you want to do a wholesale, is 159. So it was a great deal. By paying 161, we could technically take any exit strategy successfully, either a wholesale, a rental, or a flip. Okay, and this is another example. So as you can see here, this is the screenshot of property in Elmwood Park, Bankton property from auction.com. And then sometimes auction.com shows sort of like the ARV, estimated resale value, 275 for this property. And look at this, the ending bid was 210,000. Okay, so the question is, imagine if you could knock every competition and buy it for the right price, regardless of what people are bidding on the auctioning sites. Well, check this out. So just keep that number in mind. Ending bid 210,000. So the question is, was the reserve met or not? So as you can see in the first square, reserve met, it doesn't say anything, right? That's what I was telling you earlier, that oftentimes banks do not disclose what the reserve is, meaning what they're going to sell it for, okay? But we do not know that information ahead of time, okay? So here, what happened is that, boom, we got this property on the contract for 150,000. Most importantly, we are going to, as you can see, finance type, hard money lender, okay? This is so powerful because when you are at the auctions, most of the times they won't allow you to finance the deal. Okay, that's one of the drawbacks when you bid at the auctioning sites. Some allow you to finance the deal using a hard money lender, private money lender, but most of the times these are cash only transactions. So imagine that you beat every single competition, okay? We pull it from the back door. Not only that, but we're able to pay just the reserve price. You will never ever engage in a bidding war again. Not only that, but you will be able to finance the deal. And remember, when the deal has equity and cash flows, guess what? Funding is the easy part because the banks are going to be looking for equity, a lot of equity in the property and cash flow, should you decide to buy and hold the property. So when you buy a property for the right price, guess what? Funding just comes natural. Okay, so this is the contract. And as you can see, I highlighted on the top square Wells Fargo. Wells Fargo is a humongous bank. So you would be able to buy properties from any bank, any size, any type, which is an incredible tool. Does that make sense? You no longer have to look for small community banks. You can buy the property from any bank, even if it's only one property. It is that powerful. Okay, so friends, do you feel like I've splashed you with a lot of information today? So what I want to show you is, I want to show you that inventory. So we have it right over here. It's a separate tab in ChicagoDealVault called Shadow Inventory. So we go to Target. So like for instance, today, Tuesday, we got 214 properties. So we're going to be getting hundreds of properties in the next few days. But this is just how it looks like. Okay. And the cool thing is that we can plot them on the map if we want to. And the powerful thing is that we know how much the bank is going to sell it for, which is huge, right? And then you won't have any competition. So what I'm going to do is once the map comes up, we're going to identify some potential great deals so easily, okay? So these are the properties. I'm going to zoom in a bit. Okay. So as you can see, we're getting inventory from Indiana, north, south, you name it, okay? So usually what I like to do is I just like to look at properties in great areas. So Des Plaines is a great area. So let me quickly take a look at this property. So view details. So we can buy this property, which is vacant, for 161. Now, look at this. ARV is way over 300,000. DealVault is telling us that we shouldn't pay more than 204, 239, 186. So, well, yeah, we can get it for 161. So technically, you are paying 50 cents on the dollar. Can you imagine? Can you imagine the value of these? To be able to buy properties 50 cents on the dollar from large banks, zero competition, be able to finance the transaction. And this is just, we've taken real estate to the next level. Okay, so in fact, I mean, in just 2 seconds, we found an incredible deal. So I'm gonna zoom in. So this property is in Ogden. So Ogden, it's sort of like a busy road. That's the only drawback that I can quickly see that. I'm gonna do a street view. But display, yeah, Ogden, it's a busy street. So this is Ogden, right? It's I believe it's a 4-lane street. So, but Des Plaines, it's a great area. Okay, great neighborhood. So this is an example of how you can pay 50, 60 cents on the dollar from REOs. Okay, extremely, extremely powerful. Okay, uh, now the way the process works is, let's assume that we really like this property. So we have to do our due diligence ASAP. So we need to go out to the property. In here, it says that it's vacant. We just need to confirm that it's vacant, because if it's occupied, we will not be able to finance the deal because the lender requires a physical inspection on the property. Okay. We also need to check, if possible, through the windows, see the condition of the inside of the property, because we're making an assumption that this property is going to require light to medium rehab, um, averaging between 35 to 50,000, and this is based on the size of this house. It's a 3-bedroom, 3-bath, 2,100 square feet, so it's a fairly large property. So we just need to do our due diligence, and if we want to buy the property, all we need to do is we would enable this inquiry button for you and then send a message, is this available? Okay. So we are going to be communicating with directly with our partner. Okay, he's sort of like the asset manager for this property. So find out if it's available, and then if it's available and you still want to follow through, then you will sign up what's called a performance agreement. And then it's just an agreement that states that you will follow through on the purchase of the property. Okay, that is the requirement. So if you want to wholesale the property, you cannot do that. You have to buy the property, and after that, you can do anything with it. So once you sign the performance agreement, then after 2 days, you're gonna need to wire earnest money, and then in 2-3 weeks, you're gonna sign the sales contract with the bank directly, and then schedule the closing. And then the cool thing is that you can finance this transaction. And that is the beauty about this, okay? So in fact, just for sakes, what I'm going to do is I'm gonna look up this property on the internet, okay, on Google. And then specifically, I'm looking for this property to be listed in the auctioning platforms. Redfin, Realtor, Hubzu, right here. Hubzu. So Hubzu, it's one of the major auctioning sites. So this is the property, okay? And then look at this. The auction starts or ends in, okay, how do I close this? Okay, here. So the auction is going to end in 2 days and 17 hours. So it says current highest bid 117,000. So if you want to place a bid, it has to be 118,000. So as you can see the pictures on this property, it needs quite some work. Okay, so the bathroom, yeah, it does need some work. Pretty much new bathroom. Yeah, it's very dated. The kitchen. So to me, this is more than a light to medium rehab, right? So you might need to touch electric, plumbing, HVAC systems. It's a fairly large property, okay? So, but this is the cool thing. So in here, the bank does not show you the reserve, how much the bank is going to sell it for. However, we do know how much the bank is going to sell it for. So the bank's reserve is 161,000. So what the objective of the bank is for people to start bidding against each other and go a lot higher than 161. But if we decide to buy this property, it doesn't matter how high these investors bid it up for. It could be 250. It doesn't matter. We will buy it for only 160,000, which is pretty much paying about 50 cents on the dollar. So this is how powerful this inventory is. Okay. So in this case, oh, look at this. Reserve met? No, right? But it doesn't tell you what the reserve is. They keep it confidential. Why? Because they want investors to overbid each other and then just the bank will get a lot more money, right? But when we do it through DealVault, it's irrelevant. We know how much the bank is going to sell it for. Financing consider, it says seller considers rehab loans, conventional financing, and cash. Okay, so in this case, the website Hubzu will allow rehab loans like the 203K. So you can technically buy it using financing. And then here it's just going to give you more information on the property. 3 bedroom, 2 baths, the square footage, and so forth. Rental estimates. So yeah, this place is a great area. So more information about the property. Okay. But what's important is that you will beat any competition by just paying what the bank is going to sell it for. Are there any questions on the line? Any question? So now the question is, how do you get access to this inventory? So, okay, so there's a question here on the line. How do you find out what the bank's reserve is? Okay, so we have it right here. We know the bank's reserve in ChicagoDealVault. Another question is, so when we sign the agreement of purchase, this is prior to us ever get into the property, correct? Well, ideally you do your due diligence and try to see the property through the windows, everything that you need to do to feel comfortable on the transaction. Because once you've signed the performance agreement, there's no way back. Okay, you have to follow through on the transaction because our partner is going to pull all kinds of strings to get this deal off of the Hubzu site, right? So for that, then you've got to be 100% certain that you're going to follow through on the transaction. And then next is 203K loan is only if you're purchasing to live in. Absolutely, right. So 203K loan, it's a rehab loan. It's like FHA loan, construction loan, if it's going to be owner occupied. But you can use asset-based lenders, right? Like Harmony lenders. So that's not a problem. Funding is not a problem when you're paying like 50 cents on the dollar. That's the power of this inventory. So now the question is, how do you get access to this inventory? So we have the monthly subscription and the yearly subscription. All yearly subscriptions will have access to this inventory. And in fact, when our members are on the yearly subscription, they're saving about 15 to 20%, okay? And then once you have access to this inventory, you will also have to get vetted by our partner. So he's gonna require two things from you. He's gonna require your entity docs, meaning your LLC, your S Corp, all your legal documents, and also he's going to require a line of credit because he wants to make sure that you will follow through on the transaction. Okay, so obviously you need to reach out to asset-based lenders prior and get line of credits from them. So when you're ready to pull the trigger, then you have funding readily available. Okay, so that is super, super important. So are there any other questions on the line? Okay, so to get access, to get started, zooming here begins in ChicagoDealVault. So this is what we have, right? So we have the yearly subscription is $120 a month. The monthly is $140. So we're going to give you access to the shadow inventory. And right away, once you upgrade to the yearly membership, we are going to start the vetting process right away. So we'll require those two pieces of information, and then you get a phone call from our partner to get vetted. So this is how you're going to be able to pretty much take your real estate investment efforts to the next level, okay? Being able to buy properties 50 cents on the dollar. Not only that, zero competition, and most importantly, finance a transaction, okay? So do you see yourself doing this? If you want to take your real estate investment efforts to the next level, this is just another way to do it. Okay, there's another question is, does ChicagoDealVault take a finder's fee commission? Okay, we don't take any finder's fee commission. There's a consulting fee charged by our partner, okay? And that typically goes from few thousand, I've seen all the way to like 8,000, depending on the property and the property price. So we don't take any finder's fee or anything. It's our partner, okay? So when you sign the performance agreement, he's going to stipulate what that is, okay? But even if you pay like 2, 3, 4,000, I mean, when you're paying 50 cents on the dollar, zero competition, and be able to fund the transaction, it's just a no-brainer, friends. So having said that, if you do not have access to DealVault, we have a 30-day money-back guarantee, okay? So when you sign up, we're going to give you 30-day money-back guarantee. So you can test drive the system. You can check it out. If it works for you, that's awesome. If it doesn't, it's okay. We're going to give you your money back. We just want to make sure that there's nothing on the way standing for your success. We want to make sure that we give you access to great deals, awesome inventory that you can buy directly from any bank. It could be large bank paying only a fraction of what the property is worth. So lately we've been buying, probably it's going to be the fifth property that we just pull from directly from the banks. And these are like large banks, okay? So it's just been an incredible way of buying off-market properties. It's such a streamlined process, very, very, very simple. Okay, so if you are interested in getting access to this inventory, please, if you already have access to DealVault, send us an email to support at ChicagoDealVault, and then just say upgrade. If you still don't have access to this inventory, just say upgrade, and then we are going to upgrade you to the, we call this the Blue Angel package, okay, which is the yearly subscription where you're going to be saving 15 to 20%. Sorry. But I will also show you how to sign up on your own. If you want to just check this out and sign up right here. So you go to ChicagoDealVault. I'm going to send you the link. I'm going to scroll down. And then I'm going to send you this link. This is the registration form. Okay. Okay, so this is a form. That's the form where you can sign up, and then all you need to select is right here, Special Blue Angel for the package. Package, Special Blue Angel. And then for the promo code, Shadow. Okay, promo code, Shadow. Are there any other questions on the line that I can help you answer?